Chapter 15. On the Expatriate Calendar. Granadillas ripen each day on the terrace vine. We pick one with a brown, shriveled shell, put it in an egg cup, cut the top off, and eat its pulp for breakfast. What exquisite sweetness! Picking granadillas is our only link to the environment. All else is bought and paid for. The walls are white and straight, the chairs soft, the beds big enough to roll over in twice. We hold our hands under the faucet and watch the water spill away. We read under lamps at night and don't know the shape of the nightly moon. We revel in the privacy. Doors to rooms close. They even lock. Every drawer and cabinet has a key. No one comes to greet or share the news. Bella, the maid, arrives at 7:30 a.m. to serve us coffee. We're to pay Bella her fee for this month, 18 pula, about $25. That, for expatriate Habaroni standards, is a high wage for a domestic servant. In return, she is to maintain the household daily according to norms which I could never set for myself. Fix to your coffee for the, quote, master, unquote, and madam, quote, make beds, wash dishes, scrub kitchen floor, do laundry, clean bathroom. Then, after an afternoon break in her servants' quarters, she's to return to wax and polish all floors, wash walls and windows, and fix tea or coffee for madam. She returns to her quarter again to prepare and eat her own evening meal, but is expected to return to wash dinner dishes and perhaps take down the laundry, fold it and put it away, or sprinkle it to be ironed the next day. When there's no laundry, she's to clean the oven, stove, or refrigerator, wash drawers, cupboards, and windows inside and out, and iron. There's always something to be done, says Bella. To wash clothes, she folds a towel for her knees and bends over the bathtub for 2 hours, scrubbing fabric across her calloused knuckles. She sweeps loose dust with broom and dustpan, and scrubs, waxes, and polishes floors, moving swiftly on all fours while sliding with her pail or paste wax, brush, and cloth. There are no household conveniences for cleaning, no vacuum cleaner, no washing machine, and the iron, although it plugs in, reflects the weight of its name. Modern household devices are difficult to obtain and expensive. Labor is plentiful and cheap. 4 o'clock. Bella arrives with tray, porcelain teacups, silver cream pitcher, a petite glass bowl with sugar cubes, and a platter of biscuits. "Madam, it is tea time." "Madam, it is tea time," she repeats. "Well, thank you, Bella. Very nice, Bella, but, from now on, I'll make my own tea when I want it, okay?" She looks confused. "And, I'm sitting here right now. Could you forget about the floors today? They're still clean. I just don't think they need to be done every day. In fact, I really think that you could just do them once a week." "Just one time in the week, madam?" "Yes, one time. And my name is not Madam, ma." I continue in Setswana. "Modise and I cannot live here like this. Just for this month, while we stay here, you can wash clothes in the bathtub and do the floors once a week, but forget the rest. I'll do it." Ma," she replies sullenly and turns to walk away. I call her back to join me for the tea. She stands next to an empty chair and looks at me. I pass her the biscuit plate. She takes the plate and puts it on the table. "Na face," I beckon her to sit down, but she refuses. I stand up as well, pass her a teacup, and sip my tea standing next to her. She giggles lightly and sits down. "What is your Tswana name?" "Modiane." Her voice is sad. She looks down to the rug and continues in a soft monotone. She tells me of her family in Mochudi and that they depend on her monthly wages. Because I have reduced her labor, she now thinks that her wages will be cut. I apologize to her that I have not made it clear. She will, of course, earn her usual salary. We will pay her 25 pula at the end of the month. Thereafter, we will return to our home in America, and her master and madam will return to this house to resume their routine. "Modiane," I ask, "why are you looking at me like that?" "You are an American?" She smiles. "Yes," I reply. "But na, qua massimong, ki mosari moholo." On the lands, I'm an old woman. Keitse judila. I know how to smear the dung floor, I add playfully. Oh, she laughs in disbelief. Ma. Kehoitse simple. Yes, I'm good at it, I say proudly. Concerning the Tswana identity which I've tried to express, Moriani says nothing. In English, Bella repeats with delight, So, you are an American. Bella comes by to introduce her good friend, the maid next door. My madam likes to know the Tswana names, Bella turns to her friend. Lepe. But here they call me Hilda, the young woman explains to me. I was Maokif, or just Mosari Moholo on the lands, but my English name is Marianne, I reciprocate. Bella tells me that you are leaving Botswana in just 1 month, madam. Please, madam, if you have anything to sell, anything you will leave here, please tell us first, Hilda pleads. Oh, we have very little here. Most of our things were given away at the lands, I tell her. But come sit down. Let's have some tea. Bella and Hilda speak of their jobs. For now, they feel lucky to work for people who pay them good wages. Other friends receive less for the same work. In 2 years, however, their expatriate families will return overseas. New people with different English, different ways, and different wages will move in. Probably they would have a good chance at keeping their jobs if they observed carefully and learned quickly. If their pay was reduced and the job circumstances too humiliating, they would do what they'd done before. Risk looking for another job. The search for a new job is always difficult. Why not try to find a job with a Setswana family, I ask. Never, they reply adamantly. These Tswanas in town, they are rich, but they pay as little as they can get away with, and they work us twice as hard, just like the Boers in South Africa. That's why I was first frightened when you spoke Setswana. You could have been like a Boer, Bella admits. But you are one of those whites who like us, and that is why you speak Setswana. It is good for me you are American. Many Americans can pay a few more pula. Some even have machines to wash clothes. But jobs with Americans are hard to find, Hilda adds. My aunt works in a compound with 4 flats for American embassy officials. If there's a job, she will tell me, and I will run. The doorbell rings. No, Bella, I will get it. While the dog barks wildly at his feet, a young boy calls out to me. Madam, madam, please, madam, I need a job. He fires out staccato each word again, pausing between them for further emphasis. It's probably an English sentence he has memorized because he does not understand my English response, but simply turns away when I shake my head and say no. The maids are gone when I return to my cold cup of tea. I sit alone, bite into a biscuit, and stare out of the window into the garden. The garden boy is squatted by the walkway edge, trimming grass with scissors. His back glistens in the sun. His shirt hangs from his pants pocket, and he pulls it out now and then to wipe his forehead. Saturday. This final 1-month stay in Gaborone is perhaps a good transition for us. We're still among the Tswana, but live in a town life which is closer to our lifestyle at home. We've not bothered with precisions of the clock yet, but our time is measured. We are aware of weekdays again. This is Saturday. Hoyt comes home at midday. He leaves behind shebeen and town houses to come home alone. He enters our gate, Tsaba Ncha, beware of dog, and latches it behind him. There's no one to greet in the garden. He opens door and closes it. He drops his papers and equipment on a table and sinks into a chair. News is there if he wants it. He can also take off his shoes, slowly sip an ice-cold beer, and, if he wants it, he can withdraw into his own silence, into the privilege of privacy. But isolated moments are still within the Tswana life world, and when it enters our doors, we embrace it. Look who's here, Hoyt calls out from the doorway. Lekoto, the children shout. Lekoto greeted everyone. Bella and Hilda stared at his worn khaki jacket, mumbled a greeting, and withdrew with a brief salang simple. I'd not noticed until now how tall Lekoto had grown. His body was so thin that he could button his jacket, but the sleeves fell far short of his bony wrists. Similarly, his legs had grown too long for his trousers, so that he appeared, as he was, a grown-up schoolboy in last year's uniform. Shortly after we sat down to exchange the news, Lekoto told us of his problem. He had passed his examination, but only with a Class 3, a passing C grade. His attempts to apply at various secondary schools had repeatedly failed for the same reason. Only Class 1 and 2 passes would be accepted into secondary school. A grade C pass was not good enough this year. He just tried the night school in Gaborone and received the usual rejection. There was only one place left to try, Lobazzi. If Lobazzi turned him down, he did not know what he would do. We asked Lekoto if he'd told the schools that he'd been hospitalized with pneumonia before the examinations, that he came from a small village school where children were only minimally prepared for the national examinations. No, he had not mentioned these considerations. Hoyt offered to write a letter of recommendation to the secondary school in Lobazzi in which he would present Lekoto's case. If the last school turned him down, I suggested we request that Lekoto repeat the examination, and I could help him to prepare for it. Yes, Lekoto replied. Good. Then you must come here every day. We must get started. We'll prepare for your re-examination, I repeated. Yes, Lekoto responded. We drank hot tea. I have seen Rasachatli. He's found the answer to my problem, Lekoto said. At my birth, it was decided that I should live with my father's elder brother, for he's the keeper of the family cattle and has no sons. As you know, Modise, my father's brother, because he is the eldest, is also my own father. I, as my father's eldest son, was the first son of the family, and I, as inheritor, was to keep the cattle. But when the time came for me to go to my father's brother's place, my father and mother could not let me go. They did not fulfill the agreement between my father and my father's oldest brother. Instead, my father found work at the BAC and sent me to school. Rasachatli has said that my father's older brother felt badly treated. While he would be happy for me to go to school and get a job, he must have some promise from me that he will not be left out when I bring home the rewards of my schooling. After all, he too has sacrificed for my schooling. It is clear there is a spell on me to halt my success. Rasachatli read it in the bones. Tomorrow morning I will do what Rasachatli has told me to do. I will go to my father's older brother, stay with him, and promise him that I will always know my duty to the family. I will promise him that I know that he, as the eldest brother, is the keeper of our wealth, and that I, as the inheritor, will add to the wealth of the family through my success. Rasachatli is sure that I can break the spell of envy. He threw the bones again. They say I will get into school. I will get a job and earn money one day. I brought Lekoto a blanket and pillow. Sleep on the couch tonight. It's too late to go home. Hoyt shut the bedroom door. We fell into bed and I whispered, Hoyt, be sure to write Lobazzi in the morning and mention that you teach at Dartmouth in USA. That might help. The letter's got to be there because before if he doesn't get in, he'll just have to come here every day for tutoring, I rambled on. He won't. He said he would, I countered. He couldn't say no. His yes was polite. I've got to convince him. You can't argue against witchcraft. It's more powerful than the rules of the educational bureaucracy. Hoyt, that's ridiculous. What are you trying to say? Hoyt, you don't believe that. The pillow was over his head. Early the next morning, we had bid Lekoto goodbye and hardly closed the door when Bella, dressed in her Sunday finery, rushed toward us. "Oh, master! Oh, madam!" she cried out as she carried the blanket and pillow from the couch. "You let that Swana boy sleep here? You forgot to lock the cabinet and drawers. If he helps himself, I will be blamed." Keys, a ring full of keys. What were my instructions? After Bella polishes the silver, count the pieces before locking the drawer. Whenever leaving the kitchen, keep the food pantry locked. After the linen has been ironed and put away, it should be counted. Sunday. Bella dresses for church. She and Hilda are devout Christian Zionists. Bella joined the church after leaving Mochudi and coming to Gaborone. I asked her why she left Mochudi, and she explained that she'd been a victim of witchcraft. When her husband died, she'd refused to go to her brother's place. Instead, she packed her belongings and moved in with her own parents with her 2 children. She refused her brother-in-law's request to send her children to live with her husband's family, and for this reason, Bella explained, her husband's family had consulted a witch doctor. A spell was cast. She became very ill. When she finally recovered, she found no job. Her only choice was to flee the area. 2 times last year she returned to Mochudi to visit her children at her parents' home, but she will never go back to Mochudi to live. This is because of the power of witchcraft, she explains. But Bella, what about the God of your church here in Gaborone? Doesn't he protect you? No, madam, you don't understand. This is something altogether different. This has nothing to do with Tswana witchcraft. The God in my church is what I sing and pray to. It is so I can be a good Christian. She walks off in her new Sunday hat. Monday. A new week comes up like a sunrise, and there's a sense of a beginning again. On the land, we have that feeling at the time of the new moon. The night is clear, the moon an eyebrow. Darkness soothes and brings on sleep. But what is there to a Monday? A groggy face, a cup of coffee, and a scraping chair. Between Mondays, there's less time than from moon to moon. The narrower I define my own space of time, the faster it seems to go by. The faster I perceive time to be passing, the more of it has escaped my consciousness. I want to shout, "Hold!" The boys look with horror as I pick up the ticking egg timer off the kitchen counter and smash it to the floor. The eggs are hard. So what? And Mama's going crazy, says our Madala. Today I'm invited to an afternoon tea at 3 o'clock. My invitation is engraved. You're cordially invited to attend a tea to welcome Mrs. Etienne Fournier to Gaborone, Botswana. I do not know the hostess. Am I invited because I live next door, or am I invited because I should provide a quaint backdrop? It must be the latter, because I'm introduced upon arrival as, quote, a woman who actually lived in the bush and speaks Setswana. That announcement provokes some ahs, but proves quite meaningless to the guest of honor, who for a few minutes struggles valiantly to express herself in anything but French. C'est difficile parler en anglais. Le « et » pour moi, c'est très difficile à prononcer. Eh, I replied enthusiastically. Exactement, c'est ça, le « et ». She repeats my tone of voice, saying, eh. You see, in Setswana, eh means yes, but of course I meant to say oui instead of eh. Who am I talking to? She sips her martini, and I try to continue in French. Oui, c'est très difficile. Hakitsi pourquoi? What am I saying? I have no control. Tswana words slip in. She goes on in French without a hint of confusion, and what she says does not relate to anything I've tried to say, nor to anything around us. She speaks of the airport officials who let her keep her blue bag, and then of her garden in Ivory Coast, where I presume she and her husband have spent the last few years as expatriates. She says they, quote, hopscotch around bleeding the world, and lists the countries they've blessed, Algeria, Mauritius, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast. Her image, or is it candor, leaves me speechless. The martini in her hand cannot alone be responsible for the fact that she reeks of alcohol. Sunk in her chair, she sways from side to side. She smiles loosely. Her red lips quiver like cherry jello as she tells me of the parrot she left behind in Paris' apartment. Madame Jacqueline has obviously arrived tipsy at the party in her honor. She's settled in, blissfully crocked. While this realization initially strikes me as pathetic and somewhat humorous, by the end of tea time, I have to consider that Madame Jacqueline's party strategy has distinct advantages. What can her fuzzy vision distort? I move to a sober conversation on the veranda and find a seat near a glass table with tea and cakes. Around me are flowery dresses and sunglass smiles. Did you know that Botswana is no longer an underdeveloped country? The government has done so much in the last 6 years. Yes, just last year it was among the bottom 25 countries, and now it's not. The gross national product has increased because of its new mines, I suppose. Isn't that wonderful? Everyone agrees. We should all go tell Sepati, I suggest. Tuesday. Hey, Mau Keith, hey, Rao Keith. Good evening, good evening. His smiling teeth shine in the dark. He steps out from among his companions, and we recognize Raus. Keith is where? At home in bed. You go to cinema tonight? Good, very good. He smiles again. It seems to genuinely please him to see us in this context, in line with Tswana bourgeoisie and European expatriates, in line with iron dresses and fashionable shirts. Did you find a job yet, Raus? No, but I find one, Mau Keith. I find one tomorrow. Hoyt puts 20 cents in the Raus's pocket, and we wait in line to buy tickets to see Gone with the Wind. The Capitol Theater combats expatriate boredom. It draws full-capacity audiences for decade-old reruns. On weekends, town youth may scrounge for matinee tickets to see their favorite American westerns or Hong Kong kung fu films, but on weekday nights like this, they hang around waiting for pennies to drop. Kikopa 20 cents, please, a young boy pokes at Hoyt's sleeve. Kikopa 20 cents, please, Rao Keith, he begs again. Mosimane, you do not greet me, Hoyt scolds. Do I look like a bank? Modise continues in Setswana. Have you tossed away your Tswana law? Mosimane, you must greet people before you do your business, Hoyt rebukes him. The boy, confused at this white Tswana elder, looks down to the pavement and shuffles to the shadows, but only for a moment is he put off track. He emerges once again. Please, 20 cents, he whispers to a man behind us. The man reaches into his trouser pocket while the boy waits frozen, shoulders curled, head bowed. Respectfully, one hand holds the elbow of his taking hand. It closes in on the coins, and he quickly retreats to his colleagues waiting in the darkness for his sign. The next boy rushes forward into the light. But our line moves faster. We're behind the glass door, moving up the carpeted stairs while Raus and friends pool their earnings for the night. Wednesday. The bulletin board posted in the shopping mall of Gaborone is a favorite expatriate stopping place, and I too cannot leave town without stopping there. Bureau of Drawers and bicycles, like new, are advertised on 3x5 cards. So are the announcements of events of the week. I could join a tennis club, play a symphony with the Gaborone Music Society, or sail on weekends with a sailing club at the Gaborone Dam. I could fill every night of the week. Mondays, stamp club, Tuesdays, bridge game, Wednesdays, museum lecture. Gaborone may be 100 kilometers east of the Kalahari, but it does not lack any club or society for which there is expatriate fervor. I stood in front of the bulletin board thinking out loud one day. I wonder if there's a humane society. Oh, yes, in fact there is, my neighbor enlightened me. She proceeded to give me the details, and I stopped her short. Thank you. No, I don't want to join up. I was just curious, given Tswana culture, whether— My voice trailed away, and she noticed above all that I was American. I haven't seen you round before, and I guess I could say I know most of the Americans here. Oh, we used to live in the rural area and moved to town only a few weeks ago. Peace Corps? She grinned knowingly. I suppose you're quite relieved to be in Gaborone. Say, I'm having a tea for a few American wives this afternoon. Why don't you bring your children and get acquainted? One invitation leads to another. We're getting to know the American community. Today, our family has been invited to an afternoon barbecue at the home of the first attaché of the American Embassy. Hoyt refuses to go. There is some of Resakatli in him. But the children and I, thinking predominantly of the good food, grass lawn, and swimming pool, close the door on Modise and head down the road for the best part of town. The residence is impressive. Keith points out the high walls, the wrought iron gate, and the bars on the windows, and concludes that it is a fortress. Brian and I, immediately attracted to a pair of peacocks strutting on the lawn, wait in hopes of seeing a tail spread out. One peacock pokes at a rose bush, the other turns proudly away from us and ambles around the corner. Our hostess, Annette Bishop, greets us at the door. She's outgoing and very friendly. Actually, we just moved in last month. What a relief. We just couldn't manage in the other place. I have to do so much entertaining, and it was terribly small. We always need at least 4 bedrooms, and then, of course, a rec room, pool, and courts. Why, otherwise I'd go mad driving the kids around. Come, I'll give you a tour of the house, and then you can join everyone on the patio. The children run to a ball game on the lawn. I sit among Americans, a diplomat, a Fulbright scholar, a Red Cross nurse, and an AID research worker. She met him in a riding club. They're having quite an affair, and everyone knows about it except Roger. I think of the riding club and Roger and smile with everyone's laughter. Ice cubes tinkle against my glass. Anyone for a swim before the steak's on? Mine is the only chair to scrape away from the hors d'oeuvres. Perhaps the other guests prefer to preserve their coiffures because Mr. Bishop, who abandoned his ball game with the children, and I are the only adults in the water. It is elegant swimming in a kidney-shaped pool with a mosaic tile floor. Just call me Brad. Annette tells me you live in the bush. Yes. No pools there, I guess, he remarks, laughing. No pools. Definitely no pools. We got water from rain puddles, but we did have a peacock. We called him Number 19. After eating, we sit in the shade on lacy white lawn chairs. In his tennis whites, Brad Bishop appears, racket in hand. The tennis court lies abandoned in the hot sun. Anyone gonna bat the ball around a while? No takers, huh? Keith takes his last swim, and we get up to leave. We pass through the arched doorway. Come any time, Annette calls, as she clutches the ring of keys to her fortress. The doors are wide open. American hospitality, a casual place in the sun, only 18 kilometers from Resacatli's place. Thursday. We Alversons, as expatriates, do our share of entertaining. Here is a letter written by our Canadian neighbor, John Hunter, to his daughter. Dear Peggy, Julie and I enjoyed talking to you on Sunday. It was a mistake, I'm afraid, to promise to write you a long letter. You heard all the news from Gaborone, fit to print on the phone. We did receive a telegram from Mom announcing that she would be returning from Dar es Salaam on Saturday. Your sister and I have been living on scrambled eggs since she left. Well, not quite. We did dine on chili beans on one occasion. Come to think of it, I could tell you about that evening. It turned out to be a bit of an event. It was last Thursday, and Julie and I were invited to dinner at the Alversons. Alverson is a professor of anthropology at Dartmouth College on sabbatical and is living with his family in the Osbornes' old house behind us. We'd finished off a seafood entree and were halfway into a bowl of hot chili beans when there was a knock on the door. Marianne Alverson answers it. It is a kid from next door. He announces rather calmly that their maid is choking and that the parents are out. Marianne excuses herself and disappears with the kid. About 15 seconds later, she appears at the door and screams for her husband to come quickly. Alverson exits. Your sister, the 2 Alverson boys, and I continue to munch away on our chili. 60 seconds later, Marianne reappears and yells at me to go and get my car. The Alversons, preparing to leave the country, had sold theirs. Galvanized into action, but carting about 3 pounds of chili in my stomach, I ran 3 blocks to our house, jump in the car, and roar back to the Alversons' neighbor. The kid is out front and directs me to drive across the lawn to the kitchen door. I hop out of the car and spring into the kitchen. The scene is something like this. Marianne and 2 Botswana girls are standing in a corner clutching each other and wailing mysterious female sounds. Alverson is on his knees with his index finger in the mouth of the maid. The maid is flopping about on the floor like a recently caught trout, eyes rolling back, frothing at the mouth, and making a variety of ghastly sounds. Her face has been painted with 4 or 5 bright red circles around 1½ inches in diameter. My inclination is to retreat and deposit my chili beans in a quiet corner of the garden. Alverson, however, pleads me to help him get her into the car. The girl is not light. It is something like trying to gather 150 pounds of writhing jello. We finally get her into the back seat. The two Botswana girls pile in as well. I take off at high speed. Alverson beside me for the Princess Marina Hospital. No sooner do we get going than one of the girls in the back announces, above the gurgling din, that she wants us to pick up her mother, her grandfather, and her aunt and take them along to the hospital as well. In Botswana, an impending death is regarded as a social event to which relatives are invited, not unlike a bar mitzvah. As the Peugeot is designed for 4 passengers, and as we are already one 150-pound trout over the limit, not to mention that the trout is about 2 minutes removed from the great trout pond in the sky, I demur and continue on with maximum dispatch for the hospital. Tires shrieking, we make the last turn into the hospital drive and jam on the brakes. The gurgling is getting ominously quieter. 2 nurses are walking by. Alverson jumps out of the car and asks them where the emergency ward is. There is no emergency ward. Where do we take an emergency case? He gets some vague directions. We take off again, meandering around the dark hospital grounds, and after about 5 minutes away at the back of the hospital, we see a light and head for it. I hop out of the car. Alverson is beginning to gurgle a bit himself. I run into the ward full of suffering humanity. Wending my way through a labyrinth of beds replete with moaning freight, I locate a doctor and a nurse making rounds. I tell them I have an emergency. They tell me to bring it in. No one offers to help. I grab a wheelchair that some poor soul has momentarily deserted and go roaring back through the labyrinth and out the door. If getting 150 pounds of writhing jelly into the back seat of a Peugeot is difficult, getting it out and into a wheelchair, not to mention keeping it in the wheelchair, is a feat which makes threading a camel through the eye of a needle seem devoid of challenge. We manage, however, and wheel her back past the beds to the doctor and nurse who are standing where I left them with their finger in their ear. The sight of our flopping, frothing charge moves the nurse to go and get a wheeled stretcher. The doctor tells Alverson and me to put the girl on the stretcher. He stands back like Christian Barnard while Alverson and I go into our act again. Alverson grabs her legs and gets kicked about for his trouble. I grab her arms and get frothed on for mine. Half the moaners have struggled from their beds of pain and are gathered about to watch this unusual athletic event. Half wrestling, half weightlifting, 2 men versus 1 girl. We finally make it, but our job isn't over. We have to hold her on the stretcher while the doctor and nurse go about taking blood pressure and diverse and sundry other things. Alverson and I are looking frantically at each other while all this is going on. We seem to have unwittingly become unpaid employees of the hospital. Finally, an injection seems to calm the patient. No one dismisses us. I half expect to be ordered to go and clean bedpans. When no one's looking, we sneak out and drive away. Alverson says that we should get back and finish dinner. I take the position that God gave men alcohol for just such nights as this. Alverson, though not a devout man, agrees. We repair to our house and demolish a bottle of brandy. The sequel to this harrowing tale. Alverson contacted the hospital the next day. The girl was recovering. They believed she was having boyfriend trouble and had been working up a little magic routine in order to get him to come around and see her that night. In the process, they think she swallowed some of the paint she was using and that it contained some powerful toxicant. Thus concludes my tale of an evening out at the Alversons. Their dinner may be simple fare, but I must admit they provide one hell of a floor show. Tons of love, Dad. Friday. It is December. The day is hot and dry. I watch the, quote, garden boy connect the hose and wonder about Resakali's field. In Gaborone, it is time for expatriates to recreate their Christmas rituals. At the shopping mall, they buy cards, plastic trees, and felt stockings. A cardboard Santa with fur trim and beard smiles through the store window into the sweltering heat. People party by their pools, and children shine, pedaling bright cycles down the back roads. In our yard, Keith and Brian trim a thorn tree. Content to forget about Santa, there's no snow for his sleigh. We feast on Christmas Day. Tomorrow we leave. Pack bags in the hallway. We've one place to go on this, our last day in Botswana. John Hunter has lent us his Peugeot. We drive out of Gaborone, turn off the main road to Mochudi, and swing open the creaky cattle gate. Heading straight for the setting sun, we bounce along the rutted, dusty road. He sits motionless as we approach. The air is still. Not even a calling bird breaks the silence. We enter the Lualaba. The walls are crumbling. The floor is broken up. I want to reach for the broom. He rises to greet us, and we listen to his heavy boots thud across the floor to get us chairs. Susie wags her tail with recognition, sniffs and licks at our legs, and settles her skeletal self at Keith's feet. "Christmas for you!" Hoyt hands him a bottle of brandy. "Ulululu, kimetia kosi." It is the water of kings. "You are living alone?" "Eh," he responds. "Look at the field. Rain will come. There will be a good harvest." We turn toward the beauty of Botswana, his field, rows and rows of straight green cornstalks. Behind it the sun slips away, and against the red sky the lonely mountain turns black. "I will throw the bones," he says. They spill out of his pouch onto the Lualaba floor. He bends over to read them. "It is good," he simply says. "What is good?" I venture to ask. "We can be happy. This moment will come again. You will sit in this Lualaba, on this chair, and look into my eyes again. I will still be an old man, Madala. And some years closer to the Badimo. It will be another time, but the same place and the same moment." Chapter 16. Return, as the bones told it. "Did I live under this big sky?" "Yes, Brian, once upon a time." "I remember," says Keith. "My name was Tsotsi." "What was my name?" "What was Brian's name, Mom?" his older brother asks. "Madala." "Mom, what's Madala mean?" they both demand. "Mom? Dad?" Hoyt and I, lost in memories of the train travels through Botswana, look out to thorny bushes, grassy plains, and desert sand. An occasional tree lends meager shade to a herd boy and his goats. "Do you remember Moremi?" I ask Keith. Low hills, like rugged mountains, rise suddenly from the utterly flat terrain. Huts and kraals repeat in miniature the mountain shape. Footpaths wind between bushes from hut, to the lands, to town. Shadows grow long. We shield our eyes from the blinding sun as the iron snake turns towards Gaborone. After 6 years, our family returns to Botswana, the place of Resagatli's Lualaba. Botswana is not a mystery. It's not just anywhere tucked into the African continent. Botswana appears on the TV screen every time there's a news release on one of its neighbors in southern Africa. And landlocked, as it is, between political hotspots, South Africa, Namibia, the Caprivi Strip, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, this occurs fairly often. Occasionally we'll pick up a newspaper and see its familiar outline, like the size and shape of Texas on display. Editorials have described Botswana as an ideal African democracy, as a, quote, an African country coping with drought, unquote. International organizations cite Botswana as a model to solve problems of world food production, for despite its drought, cattle production has increased and agricultural research still hopes for goals of self-reliance. Botswana has been described on financial pages as a country of, quote, tremendous mineral wealth and beneficial investment potential. The capital town of Gaborone thrives. It is expanded to city proportions. There are new high-rise office buildings, new banks, new churches. The road of Gaborone to Francistown is being paved. There is talk of a new airport. Where will they build it? Perhaps out Kapamadi way, in a place called Sebele. Take the paved road to the BAC, for there's a new medical clinic. Even rural schools like Buitumelo School have new additions, flush toilets. Construction work abounds in and around Gaborone. We walk on streets in search of names and faces we remember, and cross on broken pavement. We cover our ears to seal out clangs of crashing metal. Look down, Hoyt alerts us through the clatter. Of urban waste are the remnants of another time. As rubbish, Stone Age rock cores and shavings lie scattered in the dust. Cast off are the hand axe, the spearhead, and the cleaver, strewn like chunks of concrete among the twists of rusted wire. Crumpled paper fly in fine powdered dust. We shield our eyes and walk on gingerly. You see, Modise, we have made quite some progress, Neo proclaims at the steps of his government office. I'm living in Gaborone now, in my own home, and you know that I have married. My wife also has a good job. One child is in school already. Yes, it is truly regrettable that my children do not know the lands. Of course, I truly believe they must also learn rural wisdom, and it is for this reason that I've made a decision. When they're older, they will visit their grandparents every other weekend. My father, Kirkirwe, will teach my son to slaughter the goat. Truly, this is what I have decided. And where's your brother, Sejaro, I ask. Perhaps he does not hear my voice over the noise of construction. Neo does not reply, but turns to me. You must go to the lands. My mother, Ntatabo, will dance with joy to see you again. The expatriates we once knew have been replaced by others, all, that is, except Dr. Milne, whom we bump into in front of the town public library. He continues to teach veterinary medicine. Your Sahatli never did seek me out, he complains. Too bad. Heard indirectly and too late of the fate of his goat herd. Every one of them was lost to sudden disease. Too bad, really. He shakes his head. Modise, you're back to Botswana, Kebi exclaims. Kia libocha, I'm well. I'm at technical school. It is because of the good Mr. and Mrs. Miller. They send money. Their church in Vermont sends Christmas to the village. Please, when you see them, tell them we dream they will come back. Memories can linger, and they can haunt the walls of a fortress. There's one attaché that the American embassy in Gaborone cannot forget. His picture flashed across the world press, Time, and Newsweek. Like Tswana oral tradition, the story of Brad Bishop is passed on to each succeeding American representative. Brad Bishop left his suburban USA home, taking with him the corpses of his wife Annette, his mother, and his 3 sons. The bodies, brutally bludgeoned to death, were found in a sand pit, but Brad Bishop, whose car was found in the Tennessee woods, disappeared. Speculations as to his fate and whereabouts continue. I never made it to the contest, Naledi laments. I was ill in hospital when they chose Miss Botswana. She's with her husband and infant son. They live in Mochudi, not far from her mother's place. Her husband is a school teacher, and they just starting a family. Her grandmother, the potter, she died. There's a museum on Putadikabo Hill. Her pot is in a showcase. Mao Keith! Except for his broad smile of shining white teeth, we would not recognize him. His voice is deep, his chest broad. Raus has grown to manhood. He's between jobs, he says, and will find a job tomorrow. No, he is not yet married. He has a friend. They live together on the back road in town. He walks the streets wearing a fine tweed jacket and bids us a cheerful goodbye. We follow the dirt road to Old Naledi and the squatters' section of town. The dirt road narrows. We are pressed between hovels, cluttered with garbage. The air is foul. A woman is crying. A drunkard staggers into our path. Children scavenge the ditch for soda cans. Green bushes grow near a loluapa wall. It is Mamoremi's place. The loluapa looks lovely. The walls are hard and smooth. The floor is smeared with style. Rows of cabbage grow nearby. I see her coming out of the hut. We stare at one another one brief moment before recognition. Ow! All is for the better. There's a regular family income. Moremi left school after Standard 3 to work for a construction crew in Gaborone. He likes to build. Morwadi and her sister, now also with child, work on a nearby farm. The little ones, Leraka and Elina, go to school. Yes, the old mother is still with us. See the walls, see the floor. We are by now surrounded by Mamoremi's curious neighbors, and Mamoremi fetches Kari to sell for this occasion. His English name is Richard, Mamoremi told us. We will find him in the Office of Government Statistics. We enter the complex of new government buildings and ask the guard, "We're looking for a young Tswana man named Richard. Can you please help us?" The Tswana guard thinks carefully, but only repeats the name, Richard. We cross the walkway toward the adjacent building and find another guard. "Richard, yes, you must go that way over there. Take those stairs to the second floor. He's with the computers." Lekoto sits behind a large wooden desk in a computer room. "Oh, Lulu, yes. He finished school successfully in Lobatse." We tour his office, meet his colleagues, admire his work. "No, I do not live here in town," says Lekoto. "I have my own little room in a 2-room concrete house on the grounds of the BAC. I share this place with a friend. I cycle to work every day. I cannot live in town because it is too expensive. True, my salary is good, but it is not for me alone. Do you know 2 of my sisters are now in school? And have you heard the news? My parents have another baby, last year, a boy. Yes, truly, Modise Malkith, you must go to the lands to see them." The main road north of Gaborone is paved all the way to Sebele, but leave the paved road and head west and the gate creaks as ever and still does not swing shut. The ruts in the road are deeper, wider. All else is the same. Except for Maria and Molefi's place, every path, every household, every kraal and field looks just as it was. Maria Maloma is pounding the grain in her lulwapa. She proudly tells us that she is completing her 6th year at school. Soon she will take exams for high school. She intends to do well. But where will she find the money to pay the high tuition? "Have we heard from poor Joseph Pulanka, who used to ride Tsotsi to school on his bicycle? He was caught breaking into the expatriate home at BAC where his mother washed clothes. They sent him to prison for 6 years. They locked him up with criminals. He is so ashamed of what he did. The worst of it is that he cannot finish school, and there's nothing for him to return to at home." Tabo and Polwane show us their 1-year-old son. Mosimane Hape, our fine cattle herder of his son, died. It was 3 years ago. He's buried there. They point to the field. Homolemo calls to her child to greet us. Still there is no husband. She continues to live with her parents. It is a help. The little ones, Hubuamang and Leta, can now go to school. Lekoto has a fine job in town and sends money home. And Tiro has just come home from the South African mines. He wears shoes. Sejara went with him. They both say it is rough, but they will go again one more time. The mines are money for cattle. Did we hear of number 19? Sepati stares with a toothpick hanging from her mouth. She squints to focus better. She sees us. We hug. She backs away. We hug again. "All is as it was," she says. "You missed the wedding. That boy Moses finally married Lesejo. They live at his place. My mother died just before the wedding. And the peacock? He never came home. He died in the mine." With Sepati, we walk to Maria and Molefi's place. Maria ululates as we approach. It is marvelously high and shrill. She runs to me. We cry as we embrace. She pulls me around the lolwapa. "See here, Marija holds my new grandson. This way, come. Claudia has built a concrete block house. Incredible." Molefi crosses the field. He's old. He's a Madala like his friend Sekhatli. Sekhatli lives alone. Manaka left him 5 years ago to become a tsotsi in town. Sekhatli sees us coming, waits motionless for our approach. It was as he expected. He knows his bones. He holds his Madala grown twice as tall. "Tsotsi. It is as it had to be," he gently tries to explain. "I had to shoot yours, Susie. She just could not live like a Tswana dog." Postscript. John Hunter, our Canadian friend, is back in Botswana for a second term, this time as director of the Institute of Development Management. He writes to us, Dear Marianne and Hoyt, unanswered letters are piling up around me, but I have my priorities. You shall have an immediate, well, almost immediate answer to yours, despite its lack of seniority. As for your request to find your Resachatli and let you know how he's doing, I'm sorry, but I cannot help you. As you may or may not know, Gaborone has a new, very fancy airport, which it doesn't need. It was built smack on old Sechatli's land. The government relocated all the villagers 30 kilometers or so to the north. Sechatli is not there. His friends say he's still alive, but do not know where he is. The new airport and its little-used runways have swallowed up all of Resachatli's land, and in some mysterious fashion seems to have swallowed up Sechatli as well. The old man is gone, and the village you loved is no more. Write, and give my best to Keith and Brian. Love, John.